Nigeria, like many countries of the world, is affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Italy, France, Spain, and United States of America are the worst hit, going by daily toll of deaths from COVID-19. It is against this that the Nigerian government is marching words with actions in the containment of the coronavirus pandemic. President Muhammadu Buhari, in this broadcast on COVID-19, said it point blank by ordering lockdown for Abuja, Lagos and Ogun states with leading cases of COVID-19 in the country. That has begun in earnest. In his words, I quote, "We must all see this as a national and priority duty to control and contain the spread of this virus. I will therefore ask all of us affected by this order to put aside our personal comfort to safeguard ourselves and fellow human beings. This common enemy can only be controlled if we all come together and obey scientific and medical advice." End of quote. The broadcast, many say, speaks volumes, especially with palliative measures to cushion the impact of stay at home on vulnerable groups by robust welfare. Tonight on NT Tuesday Live, the President's broadcast on COVID-19 to scale up of national response in the containment of the coronavirus pandemic. First, this report by Doing Dia to set the tone for discussion.
COVID-19, a respiratory infection affecting humans from one region to another. A recent publication by the World Health Organization revealed that over 800,000 persons have been infected globally, with more than 30,000 deaths recorded. Nigeria is not left out of the global pandemic. Since its first index case in Ogun State, Nigeria, and a resurgence, the country is now confronted with a national emergency situation. Since then, different response mechanisms have been activated by the government to sensitize the public on the coronavirus pandemic and possible ways to mitigate its further spread.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has deployed rapid response teams to affected states to support response activities. I want to here already strongly urge all health facilities at all levels, whether public or private, to be on high alert, and also for healthcare workers of all cadres to maintain a high index of suspicion and to give full cooperation to contact tracers everywhere.
Some Nigerians who flee into the country from overseas filled wrong addresses and phone numbers in their phones, making it difficult to trace them.
With most economies around the world getting heated by its effect, it became pertinent for Nigeria to also act swiftly, and so the presidential broadcast to the nation came timely.
As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. There is no such thing as an overreaction or an underreaction. It is all about the right reaction by the right agencies and the trained experts. Accordingly, as a government, we will continue to rely on guidance of our medical professionals and experts at the Ministry of Health, NCDC, and other relevant agencies through this difficult time. I therefore urge all students to adhere to their guidelines as they are released from time to time.
With the directive for a 14-day lockdown by the federal government and the various social welfare programs activated, Nigerians can only hope for better days ahead. In Abuja, Doing Dia.
Doing Dia's backgrounder on President Buhari's broadcast on COVID-19 sets the tone for the first part of the discussion tonight. Our second part will be on assessment of the national response on COVID-19. While it's Tuesday Live, at some point the lines will be open and the phone line will be displayed on the screen. Make your phone call, raise your concern, make your input, and we shall address them. And in doing this, please turn down the volume of your television set. Also, you can be part of the conversation tonight through our Twitter handle at TuesdayLiveNTA. My guest for the first segment I have in Abuja and also from Ibadan Network Center. In Abuja, right, joining me in the studio tonight is Ajuri Ngalale. Ajuri Ngalale is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Good to have you on the program.
It's always a privilege to be here.
Okay. From Ibadan Network Center, we have Professor Oyewale Tomori. Professor Oyewale Tomori is a renowned Nigerian virologist that worked with the World Health Organization. He's among many things a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science and does research in infectious disease, veterinary medicine, and public health. He also is an educational administrator and former Vice Chancellor of Redeemer University, Ogun State. He's joining us from Ibadan Network Center. Good to have you, Prof.
Yes, how are you doing?
Thank you so much. Well, gentlemen, we are set. Now, the time is just now. There's a lockdown in Nigeria, specifically Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun. What's the update?
Well, first of all, we've been quite enthused by the level of compliance that we've seen in the territories you mentioned, Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun State. Obviously, there are some peculiarities in terms of, in Ogun State, there's some synergy between the state government and the federal government about some of the things that may need a bit of modification here and there just to ensure that they're able to most effectively key in. But by and large, we've been really happy with the way that our people have responded. But look, ultimately, it comes down to the fact that, I've received the question a lot around the country as I've been on radio stations around the country about why it is that we're not engaging in a national lockdown, why the president focused in on those zones that he focused in on. And I think it's extremely important for our people to understand that this is not just a matter of, locking down territories on the basis of the confirmed active cases that we know about. It's also about the extent to which the contacts that are currently being traced tend to reside heavily out of the 6,000 plus that are currently being traced. You have such a huge bulk of those being traced within these territories, and I think that's very important for our people to understand so that they know why it is that we've keyed in on that. And now, obviously, the president was very specific in his speech in making it clear that he is very much cognizant of the possibility of further spread to other states, which is why he put in place and announced the restrictions placed on interstate travel. But not only did he do so, but he also added the innovative feature of ensuring that it's not just our security agencies that are on our roads, on the interstate road networks, kind of controlling the flows of traffic, but that he's deploying NCDC staff to those networks as well to ensure that people moving across state lines are abiding by the kinds of testing protocols that we're seeing around the country. There are two major elements to this, right? Of course, the response, the president's address was clear about bifurcating the issue between public health and, of course, the economy. In terms of public health, there has been a robust response, and I want to be very precise so that our people know exactly what it is that is going on right now. Last week, we had the capacity as a nation, via the NCDC, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, to be able to test approximately 500 coronavirus, potential cases per day. Right? We have been able to effectively ramp up to about almost 1,000 this week. Next week, according to the NCDC DG, that we're going to be able to be in a position to test up to 1,500 individuals per day. And the reason why that is being made possible is before this crisis occurred, you had essentially 5 NCDC molecular evaluation laboratories around the country. Specifically speaking, you had 2 in Lagos, you had 1 in Abuja, you had 1 in Osun State, and you had 1 in Edo. Since the crisis broke out, we have moved very swiftly with the special intervention funds provided by Mr. President to be able to establish quickly another molecular evaluation laboratory in Ibadan, and also a molecular evaluation laboratory in Abakaliki in Ebonyi State. We have gone to the extent of working with state governments hand in glove to ensure that down to the specific equipment that they have in their virology centers, that we are upgrading and outfitting those centers into full-scale molecular evaluation laboratories so that we can test specifically for coronavirus, to the extent of even providing reagents that will fit into the screening equipments that were available in Abakaliki's virology center, for example. Within the next, I want to make this very clear, we currently have 7 now. Within the next approximately 10 days or so, or 2 weeks or so, 10 days to 2 weeks, we're going to be able to upgrade that capacity, those molecular evaluation laboratories, into other parts of the country, and we're trying to ramp up to make sure that we can get to about 13 over the course of the next few weeks.
Okay. If you're just joining us, the focus tonight is on President Buhari's broadcast on COVID-19. First leg, second leg will be on the assessment of the national response. I'm being joined also from Ibadan by Professor Oyewale Tomori. Prof, if you can hear me, now the lockdown is on. When the president spoke, what we can say now is the time is just now. There's no other time. In one of his appeals, he said clearly, we should put aside our personal comfort to safeguard ourselves and fellow human beings. The common enemy can only be controlled if we all come together and obey scientific and medical advice. In your capacity, what will you tell Nigerians now?
I think it was a good thing that finally the president came out and spoke to the nation. And one thing that impressed me most was that he stood up to talk to the nation and gave the impression that this was a matter that concerns all of us. A matter that we are standing up against that virus and whatever it is. It was nice to see him stand up and say it, rather than the complacent thing that we see when people sit down or something. This is a serious matter for the country. And finally, when he spoke, we're glad he did. What he said was actually what was correct for us to do. As a nation, this is not just a matter of government thing alone. In fact, more important than the government, it's what you and I as individuals do to comply with those guidelines. The experts have told us what to do. It is left for us to ensure that those guidelines are complied with. The degree of compliance will determine whether this lockup will only end up where it is or it's going to go throughout the country. If we do not comply as it is, I can assure you we're going to get the situation worse than it is, and the whole country will be under lockdown. Therefore, it is important that he has done his own bit, that you and I as individuals comply with this. There will be initial, problems. We'll have different difficulties at this time, but then it's only temporary. If we do it right this time, then we can be sure that we take over, we completely control this problem that is with us. Otherwise, as he has warned, we may be in for a worse situation and a longer period.
I read a publication made attributed to you, and you were very, very concerned and worried. But you also said that Nigeria has the capacity to deliver on this. Have you changed about this?
Yeah. Okay. Let me specifically talk about. We give examples. This country has had problems with Ebola before. We overcame Ebola. But the only problem we had was that we did not sustain all the facilities that we had when we overcame Ebola. It was like we didn't learn a lesson. We quickly forgot the lesson we learned with Ebola. And that's why yellow fever came, Lassa fever came, monkeypox came, and we were not ready. But I think we hope that this will be an opportunity for us to learn all those lessons that were forgotten. Yes, the capacity is there in this country, either individually for human resources, or facilities are all over the place, or even the resources that we have. People talk that we're not a rich country. If we spend our money well, we'll be okay with our situation. And I think that's one of the messages that we need to send to our people. It's gratifying to see people now donating 1 billion here, 1 billion there, 1 billion there. But it is important for us to spend our money properly and for the right thing. And until we do that, we're going to go back to the same lesson that we missed when Ebola came. So there are individuals in these countries. There are people who are well-versed, who are experienced. There are people who are committed. There are people who are patriotic, who love this country, even more than some of our politicians love this country. These are people, if you call them in to come and do the work, they will selflessly serve the people in this country. But we have all it takes in this country. I keep saying that. But we never take all we have. We have more respect for people outside this country than some of our own people who are ready to sacrifice even their life, if possible, for the sake of this country. But nobody wants to sacrifice his life for a country that doesn't care for it.
Okay, at this point, we'll take some vox pop on the issue. When we return back, we'll continue the conversation.
I want to appreciate the efforts of the federal government. I listened to the broadcast of the president, and from what he has said, we believe that the federal government is on top of the situation. But on the other hand, I still want to appeal to the public because, as it were, even though the federal government has maintained that we should restrict movements and observe certain things, I still see that the public has not really done that, and that is the area I want them to actually do so much.
Yes, the broadcast of the president, we are very happy with it. Specific areas like Lagos, Abuja, to remain indoors is okay to be able to curb the menace of COVID-19.
I think it's the right step in the right direction. Most countries of the world have stimulants. They kind of send a stimulus on how to kind of boost the economy so that the citizens can meet up with one or two obligations. So every country has its peculiarity. We have our own unique cases. So the president, in his own wisdom, tried to kind of apply what is intended with our own terrain here. So it is in a good order. Like it's for the downtrodden. The SMS is something you said about, and the continuation of school feeding programs is something else. Do you understand? The IDPs will also not be left out. Something's going to be done about them. So these are the things that we needed, so that nobody will be left out.
Nigerians making their inputs there. I'm backing up the studio jury. Now, one of the key things Professor Tomori said is the resources are there. We need to channel and appropriate them into the right channels, and as much as people are sacrificing. Also, palliative measures. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. First of all, I really appreciate the contributions by our guest in Ibadan. Look, the issues are multifarious, as I mentioned earlier. On the one side, I just want to be clear because there's some social media reaction, people wanting to know where the laboratories I mentioned will be coming up at. Just to be very clear, the movement from 7 current laboratories into 13 will take place across 6 other states. That's going to be in Kaduna, in Kano, in Maiduguri, in Plateau State, in Port Harcourt, River State as well. So all of that is going to be put in place within the next 2.5 weeks, as I mentioned earlier. Now, on the part of the point that, funds are coming in from the private sector, we are very, very excited about the contributions that we're seeing, and not just the contributions, but how it's being managed. And I want to enlighten our people about this. What you have is a coalition of private sector cooperation, essentially, it's being coordinated by the federal government through a steering committee that's headed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Bas Mustafa. Then you have 4 different kind of committees that comprise this. You have the steering committee, where essentially headed by the SGF, that is going to be able to effectively determine prioritization, work with other political actors to ensure that we are working in synergy with state governments and that the investments are going where they're supposed to go according to the needs that are out there. Then you have the operational committee, which is going to be led by the private sector firms, not individuals now, firms like Dangote Foundation, Fidelity Bank, EcoBank, GT Bank, so many other contributors who are going to oversee logistics, communication, advocacy, and project management, core project management. Then you have the funding committee that has the actual individuals involved. Alhaji Aliko Dangote, Mr. Herbert Wigwe, Jim Ovia, Tony Elumelu, and amongst many others, who each have contributed less than 1 billion naira. So that's kind of the way that now plays out. Then you have the technical committee, which is very, very critical to understand. The technical committee comprises the World Health Organization, the NCDC, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the Federal Ministry of Health. And the job of the technical committee is to basically ensure that we have all of the data as it relates to the technical requirements needed in each facility. How much of each piece of equipment, materials, testing kits, testing protocols, all the things that we need in the isolation centers and all of that. So that structure is in place to give Nigerians confidence and to ensure that not only do we have experts driving it, but the private sector is not just contributing to it, but they're also managing the fund. So it's not going to be anything that Nigerians should worry about in terms of resource misappropriation, which we have seen in past initiatives of such. Now, we want to be very clear that in the first section, we have within the next 10 days, and we're working very, very rapidly. Within the next 10 days, we are going to extend our isolation center capacity, rehabilitation capacity across a few different states. We are establishing, we've already seen the establishment of the facility in Mobolaji Johnson Arena in Onikan, Lagos State, between GTB and the Lagos State government. That's 110 beds. In Lagos, you are going to have within the next 10 days about 1,000 bed capacity for rehabilitation centers through the work of this coalition. You're also going to have the establishment of a 500-bed facility in Kano. You're going to have the establishment of a 210-bed facility in River State, a 200-bed facility in Abuja, a 200-bed facility in Enugu, and all of that. So we're really moving it across the country, and we want to make sure that spread is there and that we're not waiting for cases to emerge in certain places before we have the facilities available. We're being proactive and we're moving ahead of the curve. With that said, I think it's extremely important to note that that's the public health side of the response. We have done so much on the economic side very, very quickly. I know we're running out of time. You have a series of measures. Just yesterday, President Muhammadu Buhari constituted the new Economic Sustainability Committee, which is chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo. That committee comprises some of the most key economic stakeholders in the country. The Governor of the Central Bank, the GMD of NNPC, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. That is being put in place, not just to oversee how new palliative measures can be developed and implemented, but also to see how we can create a long-term sustainability plan, because the president wisely recognized that after the COVID-19 outbreak, the economic fundamentals of global supply chains, and including what is even Nigerian internal revenue flows, are going to be fundamentally altered. So he has now tasked that committee with ensuring that they come up with a long-term economic sustainability plan that would ensure that we are much less dependent on the oil sector. We drive up very quickly non-oil growth, and we put all of those things in place. Now, in terms of direct palliatives to our people, we know that the Central Bank of Nigeria has already come out publicly to address Nigerians and tell Nigerians that we have put in place a 1.1 trillion naira intervention fund. Involved in that is a 50 billion naira direct intervention through the Nursal Microfinance Bank, which is going to allow households around the country, as well as various micro and small and medium scale enterprises, to access facilities to ensure that this temporary period of economic slowdown does not fundamentally, impact their ability to do further business after the crisis is over. Then you have a 100 billion naira intervention in the healthcare service delivery system in the country. I think this is very important because we can't just address the crisis for today. We have to address the crisis in a manner that resolves today's problems, but it positions us more effectively to deal with whatever future occurrences come into play, which is why the 100 billion is going to be used to establish research and development and innovation laboratories across public health institutions around the country so that we can provide the infrastructural backbone for our very talented medical professionals around the country, as well as extending facilities to Nigerian drug manufacturers to open new and expand existing drug manufacturing plants across the country. All of this is being put in place to ensure that our people at all levels, from the grassroots on up into even corporate entities, are effectively being positioned not just for the present but for the future.
Good. Now to Professor Tomori. Sustainability plan, now and the future. What's your position?
I want to thank, in a way, I want to say I'm very grateful and happy that we had COVID-19. Because all these structures and things that my colleague and friend is talking about probably wouldn't have happened in this country if we had not had this major problem. But then we need to look beyond this and look at the things of the past. How did we perform in the past? Are we going to ensure that what comes after COVID, all of these structures will be in place and make our country different? For example, yesterday I was thinking, a lot of countries are locked down, but they are working from their homes. Can we do that in the country? We should begin to think of what we're going to do for the future. How many of our civil servants can work from home? These are questions that you and I need to be looking at. We're talking about drug manufacturing. We're depending on virtually everything is being important to this country. By now, we should begin to look forward to say that after COVID, beyond COVID, that this country, some of those things that we're talking about can be prevented in this country. There was a time we were doing all that in this country. We forgot to do all that one. So I think beyond what the structures and the people are doing, we need to make an appeal to our people individually. Wherever position you are, in whatever, don't regard any position in this country as low position. Every individual, whether you're the gate man or the one at the top of this thing, you are equally important in turning this country around. How you commit to this country, how you do what with all these structures are in place. After all, it's not the tables and the chairs that make the structure. It's the individual, that person who makes sure that I'm committed to see this country become what I think it should be. I'm committed to ensure that when COVID comes next time, we are better prepared. And if these are the things, the message that we need to get to our people. We have a problem in our hand now. If we do the right thing, it will be life for us. If we do the wrong thing, it will be death. It's life or death. And you make up your mind which one you want for this country. Thank you very much, sir.
But Prof, still on you. If a professional like you speaks, you rekindle hope or you dampen hope. So would you say, from what you're saying, hope is lost?
Hey, I would never lose, I've never lost hope, and I will never lose hope in this country. I've been on this thing for the past 60 years. If I had no hope, I would still be talking and waking up at 11 o'clock at night to talk about our country, to make sure that we do what is right. By now, I should be sleeping on bed at my age. But because I have hope that we can do it, because I know we did it before, because I know that it's the same individuals who made this country what it is, the people who committed themselves, who trusted in people in this country, the leadership who led us to where we are, that's the reason why we have hope. The change will come. We're not talking about any political party or anything. We're talking about Nigerians as people. We're talking about our country, our nation. We're talking about this country. And remember when somebody said, do not ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. It can be said that in America. It can be said for my generation, because this country has done great for me. I went through, all my education was in this country. I had free primary education, free secondary education, free university education. Therefore, I should not be asking this country what it's going to do for me. It's already done enough for me. But what are the generation that came after me? What has this country done for them? What are the politicians that here done for those people? Those are the people we need to encourage to say, we did it before. We can do it again, provided our leadership remembers what they are elected for, to serve the people of this country.
Ajuri, you heard Professor Tomori there. Now, let's speak to the people. It's about government saying, don't do this, and the people comply. Let's speak to the people.
We are one people. At the end of the day, we all have common concerns, but this is a moment in global history, not just national history, where nations are finding out what they're made of, where the fabric of countries are being tested and pulled in such a manner that you will know how cohesive countries are and what the nature of people within countries truly kind of stand for and represent. We have always been known as a resilient people. We've always been known as being industrious, ingenious, gifted. This is the time to manifest it. There's no better time than now, because this COVID-19 crisis has proven to Nigerians that there can be a threat to all. Whether or not you're rich, whether or not you're poor, whether or not you're powerful, whether you're from the east, west, north, south, Muslim, Christian, or no faith at all, this is the great equalizer. And people often forget that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a citizen just like everybody else. And that is the equalizer. All of us are citizens of this country, and all of us, regardless of whether we hold an official office or not, have a responsibility to ensure that we create the kind of country that we want to bequeath to our children. And I think this is a moment where all of us can unite. We can stop the political games. We can put it on pause. There's always time for political competition and competition of ideas. This is the time for us to unite and agree that this is a threat we must deal with, and the way that we're going to deal with it is by obeying the directives that have been set forth before us and ensuring that we're doing what we're supposed to do as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, back to Professor Oyewale Tomori. What's your last word or line of thought for this segment before signing off?
My last thought is I'm saying that the country belongs to all of us. You have a stake in this country. I have a stake in this country. The future of our children is in our hands. What we do today determines what will happen in the future. And just like my colleague has said, there's only one country we have. And irrespective of what your position is, you have a role to play. And your role is as important as any other person in this country.
Professor Oyewale Tomori, thanks for being on Tuesday Live tonight.
Very much.
And Abuja, what's your last word on this segment?
My last word would be just to encourage our people that they should continue being as law-abiding and as cooperative as we have seen them be over the past 24 hours or so. We want to see even more cooperation, more collaboration, more of an understanding that we are all owners of the Nigerian project, and all of us we have equal stake in driving it forward. I just want to say that for those who are concerned about the palliatives that are coming out, the speed with which they're coming out, the coverage with which they're coming out, there are many palliatives which I did not mention here tonight that the President did mention in terms of moratorium on repayment of so many loans, provision of relief packages for vulnerable communities around the lockdown zones and all of that. But I just want to assure our people that we are attacking this from every level. We're seeing private sector contribution. We're seeing government contribution. We're seeing contribution from everywhere. They should expect even legislative interventions. We have seen for the first time, and I can't remember ever seeing a situation where lawmakers, both the Senate and the House of Reps, are donating the Senate half of their salaries for the foreseeable future until we are COVID-19 free. And then the House of Representatives have now donated their full salaries for the next 2 months during the time of this crisis. That is the kind of solidarity that we need across the country, and I just encourage our leaders to set the example for our people to follow, and for our people to also follow the example being set very clearly and very well by President Muhammadu Buhari and the administration.
Thank you so much, Ajuri Ngarale. Ajuri Ngarale is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege.
That's a wrap.
Thank you.
On the first segment of Tuesday Live tonight, we looked at the President's broadcast on COVID-19. When we return after the break, we shall be looking at assessing the national response on COVID-19. Stay with us.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online, or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Welcome back. We talk more on the national response on COVID-19 with a different set of guests. There are reports of some suspected cases coming out negative, some others in isolation being discharged, and intensified measures in curtailing the spread of COVID-19. Already, palliatives and relief supplies are being rolled out to 1 million poor Nigerians and 36,000 vulnerable households nationwide. This is coupled with information that the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, currently has capacity to test 500 persons per day for COVID-19 and is working to double or triple the number. Nigeria, in the face of COVID-19, its national response in curtailing the spread of the pandemic. After this background report put together by Joy Ken Abakweya.
The Federal Ministry of Health has confirmed the first case of coronavirus COVID-19 in Nigeria.
The gentleman who came here apparently may have gotten infected at a point, but walked through the screening with no symptoms.
With that announcement on the 28th of February, Nigeria became one of the countries affected by COVID-19, a virus that has been ravaging many nations months before. The Index case, an Italian male, was closely followed by Nigerian cases in a short while. 1 month after, Nigeria is managing more than 100 confirmed cases across several states, including the FCT. Lagos, the epicenter of the virus in Nigeria, currently records the highest number of cases. The good news is that most of the patients are in stable condition, while a few have been discharged after testing negative to the virus.
I'm a living proof, a living witness alongside my other colleagues that we can beat it. But from the second day I came here, there was improvement up to this moment. So,
to ensure that the situation is brought under control, governments at all levels have adopted policies and laws to contain the spread, from heightened public awareness, tracking of contacts, and provision of testing and preventive kits, to the setting up of more treatment facilities and new isolation centers.
We cannot be over-prepared. In fact, the whole idea and the whole sentiment is you need to wrap up preparedness to over 200-300 level. So what we are doing here is we are building excess capacity in the event that we see a huge spike and it becomes something that we need to activate.
To further check the spread of COVID-19, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered a total lockdown of areas with the highest incidence, Lagos and by extension Ogun State and the Federal Capital Territory. Before that announcement, schools and worship centers, nightclubs and other entertainment centers, sporting arenas and major markets in the Lagos metropolis were already shut down. However, authorities are not leaving citizens to their fate as they are rolling out economic stimulus for residents. Nigerians have also formed a united front in spite of tribe, religion, or political affiliations to combat the virus, with donations from well-to-do citizens and organizations. Stay safe. Maintain social distance is the phrase on the lips of every Nigerian as they pray and hope for the quick exit of the global COVID-19 pandemic.
Stay safe, maintain social distancing. That's report by Joken Abakuya sets the tone for the second segment of Tuesday Live tonight, and it's looking at assessment of the national response on COVID-19. It's Tuesday Live. At some point, the lines will be open and the phone line will be displayed on the screen. Make your call and raise your concerns and we shall address them. In doing this, please turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the echo or hallback. Also, you can be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle. We have a couple of tweets, which is at Tuesday Live NTA. My guests, to my right is Dr. Francis Faduyile, President, Nigerian Medical Association, NMA. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure being here.
Dr. Tor Agbide, Executive Director, In-Country Medicare and Public Health Expert on Immune Boosters, and also Secretary General, Integrative Medicine West Africa. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
It's my pleasure to be with you, Mini.
From our Just Network Center, we have Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja. Welcome to the program.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. And also from our Kaduna Network Center, we have Dr. Khalid Abubakar. Dr. Khalid Abubakar is the Secretary General, Jumatul Nasrul Islam. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the program.
Very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, and also on this segment, we shall take some reports dotting the landscape of Nigeria. Well, gentlemen, we begin. Now, the national response of COVID-19. What's your take on it? Let me begin with you.
Well, I think we have to commend the federal government and the state government for being able to act swiftly in the treatment and in the activities towards containing the COVID-19 in Nigeria. we want to especially appreciate the way we came to take care of the first index case, that is the Italian man, and unfortunately we still allowed airports to be open to have this deluge of people who brought the COVID-19 to Nigeria. But by and large, I think Lagos State and the federal government has done a very good job up till now, except some hitches that are not making things work effectively as it were. And I think there is still room for improvement. But by and large, the response has been fairly okay, and we are hoping that we can improve as the day goes by.
Okay. Doctor, I'm happy you're here and the national president of NMA here.
Yes.
There's something worrisome, as much as I will talk about the national response. Does it mean because of COVID-19, people will not sneeze anymore? People will not cough anymore? It's becoming a problem. Does it mean if I cough, it is COVID-19? If I sneeze, it is COVID-19?
No,
is that the meaning?
No, Omidi, thanks a lot for that question. It is really very important for the public to be aware that there are other disease symptoms that mimic just like COVID-19. And that's why the best way to actually confirm that you are dealing with a case is through the laboratory, diagnosis. If not sneezing, those who have allergies, which is just due to environmental contaminants, exposures. They can come into an environment and then they will start sneezing. Even coughing. People can cough. You can have some upper respiratory tract, irritation that you can cough. So there are so many things that if you're just looking at isolated symptoms, it would not lead you to conclude that it is COVID-19. It should be all-encompassing. It is nice that the major signs or symptoms for COVID-19 have been listed. And in addition to that, those signs, we also have confirmatory diagnosis that got to be made before it is said that you are COVID-19 positive.
I asked this question before I go to Jos and Kaduna, just for clarification. There's a possibility somebody could have crisis. Maybe he's diabetic, maybe he's asthmatic, and maybe he sneezes. People run away from him or her, and it becomes somebody dies because. So how do we handle this? It has become a public problem when somebody sneezes or just coughs automatically. So how do we handle cases like this? If sneezing or coughing does not translate COVID-19, how do we handle it? Because the guidelines are there, but some of the guidelines appear over-bloated. The reaction is taking a different toll. As I sit here, if I sneeze twice, people think I have COVID-19.
Well,
whereas it could be some other health problem.
Well, I think we need a lot of public education.
Which what you're doing right now.
Which we are doing. But importantly, before COVID-19 came, we have been coughing, we have been sneezing. Yeah. So it cannot be that COVID-19 has just reinvented coughing and sneezing. But importantly...
But do you agree with me that when somebody sneezes in public,
yes,
people run away?
But importantly, it is the rate of infectability of COVID-19 that is making everybody to be on edge. If someone has COVID-19 and stays in a small enclosure, everybody is at a risk of being contacting it. So, any form of sneeze or cough, at this period, everybody is on edge. So, you can't blame them. But it is important for us to know that beyond sneezing, coughing, there are other signs. Fever, you can have stool, and if it is getting to more severe cases, difficulty in breathing. And in fact, it's not real sneezing that is one of the signs. It's actually coughing. Okay? Then you have fever, which is classical. And fever and coughing is also the same classical with malaria, typhoid that we see around. But because COVID-19 has come and we have been seen that the rate of infection is so high, then everybody is afraid of any person who is showing any feverish condition or any cough or any other sign. So I think that is why people are on edge. You can't blame them for that.
Okay, we'll continue with the conversation. Well, if you're just joining us, the second part of Tuesday Live tonight is taking a look at the national response, and we are going to Kaduna and Jos. Beginning from Jos, we have two religious leaders. The Catholic Archbishop of Abuja is in Jos, and the Secretary General of Jama'atu Nasri Islam is in Kaduna. From Jos, Most Reverend Ignatius Kegama, quite fundamentally, Nigeria is a secular state, and religion plays a major role whenever we are confronted with this kind of a challenge. How have you been able to manage this compared to the national response, what government is doing?
Thank you. We are Nigerians to the core. We are patriotic citizens also. What affects one Nigerian affects all of us. And as people of religion, we should be in the forefront of the fight against anything that brings harm to us and to other people. So we are so sad with the invasion of coronavirus that it has affected nearly every sphere of our existence. And so religion should play a very crucial and a very vital role in controlling the spread of this virus. And so we pledge our support to the federal government and the various state governments in the measures they are taking in order to contain this dreaded disease. We are appealing to our people to be calm. We have to restrain them from coming to public gatherings for worship. Where there is a total lockdown, they stay at home completely. And where a certain limited number is allowed, they can come together, but with great caution. We have just had a very big event in Jos today, attended by only 50 people. I'm talking about the installation of the new Archbishop of Jos, Archbishop Matthew Audu, who is my successor. It was meant to be a huge gathering, a very fantastic celebration. Thousands of people were expected. But because of this coronavirus and because of the orders from the government, we had to limit the attendance to only 50 people. It wasn't funny. We wanted a huge and very elaborate celebration. And this is to tell you that we are sensitive to what government is doing in order to bring an end to this menace. And we shall cooperate fully and educate our people at the grassroots, because we are more close to them at the grassroots. We deal with them every day. They run to us more easily than they do to government officials, because we are always available and there to sympathize or to empathize with them. So I can assure you we are very troubled. We are greatly concerned, and we want to do everything possible together with government to bring an end to this menace.
Thank you. Now, let's go to Kaduna. Dr. Khalid Abubakar, what's your reaction regarding religious leaders who are in total violation or who are tempted to violate government directives and guidelines given at this moment?
Well, let me begin by thanking you for this very important invitation, and secondly, commiserate with the federal and state governments over this pandemic, a very painful situation in this country, and also extend my condolences to those whose family members were affected, and to wish those who are tested positive quickest recovery. I think it is very sad and painful to, in this point in time of not only national but international tragedy of this terrible epidemic, this pandemic of a plague which is shutting down the whole world, to find certain people or religious followers define these steps taken in order to save the lives of the citizenry. By the way, such people with these very unpleasant attitude as religious leaders, if the followers are infected and then subsequently die, where will they have this congregation? Isn't it better that we really take heed of the experts who have really brainstormed scientifically, intellectually, based on knowledge and experience, that the only way to stop this pandemic is to avoid large group of gathering. There should be social distancing. This is the only way. Therefore, but I was thinking that this plague of a pandemic, I was thinking will make us as Nigerians close all gaps, come together in whatever spheres of lives we are, professionally, spiritually, and so on and so forth, to work together in order to see that we become important stakeholders in really mitigating, not only mitigating, but containing the spread of this pandemic. And I think I want to stress here that religious leaders should be in the forefront in really partnering with the government and all other agencies, NCDC and other institutions, to come together and work, not to begin to behave in an antisocial manner and so on and so forth. By the way, in the history of human society, in terms of health and diseases, I think epidemics, plagues, or pandemics are not new within the social setting, within the human community, and there are means and ways through which such misnomer are addressed, and through the help of the expertise advice that such things were really fought, and it now became history. Therefore, quite unfortunately, I always maintain that Nigerians, quite unfortunately, seem to be special species of creation. We look like other people, but we are not the same. We look like other people, but in terms of attitudinal behavior, in terms of doing what we are supposed to do as when it is required, we are always found wanting because of very backward considerations that have no place within the social system and the scientific system and based on the social order. I think it is time that we begin to behave like other people. But because of that very serious item or agenda, death, I think some people are really getting it right, and the response, I think, is appreciable, but elsewhere it is really not good for. It is unbecoming of a religious leader. to now even deny that this COVID-19 is but an illusion. It is a ghost. It is but a shadow, that it is not a reality, and that nobody whosoever can stop him from calling for congregation. This is really very painful. This is really very antisocial. This is even anti-God, anti-religion, and anti-scripture. Because when people begin to take such negative antisocial steps, it means they are even ignorant of the scriptures which they purport to teach their followers. Because in all these scriptures, there are mentions of one plague or the other, one epidemic or the other, one pandemic or the other, and the only way to contain them is to really follow the advice of the expert. But quite unfortunately, it is pleasing to mention at this point that we have really been talking, we have been really giving out press releases, press conferences, and so on and so forth, using the social media platform. And the responses are really very wonderful, and it is pleasing to say that even those with the psycho-complex of recalcitrant attitude of refusing what is a reality are now seeing the light, and some of them are openly apologizing, and some of them had taken the heed, and the work has just begun and will continue to do it. I call on all religious leaders, scholars, followers to really rally around the government and all stakeholders to be in the forefront in fighting this code so that our country will be safe.
Okay, Dr. Khalid, let me hold you there. I'll come back to you subsequently in the program. Now, back in Abuja, it's Tuesday Live, and if you're just joining us, we're looking at the assessment of the national response on COVID-19. Our Twitter handle is already bursting with tweets, and I believe when we return back after the reports, we'll take some phone calls and respond to some tweets. Now we'll begin with the report from Port Harcourt.
The global economic growth expected to be 1.6% in 2020 and 3.2% in 2021 has been sharply adjusted downwards as a result of the outbreak of the coronavirus. For many years, China has become an important market, a source of tourism, and a supplier of consumer goods to other countries. To ensure that men and materials from China and other countries affected by the virus don't find a way to River State, most entry points, especially airports and seaports, are stationed with port health officials for intensive screening.
I trust Nigeria on this because I can remember vividly during the time of February they take precautions and measures, and what I'm seeing here is quite impressed.
Any vessel coming comes with a yellow flag, and when you see the yellow flag, that means the ship has not been cleared. So when the port head goes on board, they check, and if everything is okay, they will now bring the yellow flag down and now give the opportunity for other workers to go in.
The economic implication of the coronavirus outbreak is that many goods are no longer available and traders are forced to rely on old stock, creating chances for scarcity when the supply elapses.
When there is a scarcity in goods, it's going to rise up. The price will rise up because the little ones that is circulated, that is available, the owners will put money, which is going to affect it seriously.
With this situation, there are indications that as the global value chain in which China plays a crucial role is being seriously disrupted by COVID-19, the huge adverse economic effect is already having its toll across the globe.
Our next stop is Kano.
Being highly populated state,
Kano is also known to be the commercial hub of northern Nigeria, where people from within and outside the country transact businesses of different kinds. To halt the importation of COVID-19 and prevent its spread, Kano State Government ordered for the immediate closure of schools and offices, this in addition to fumigation of the state and closure of land borders.
So that at a point in time we will be able to identify, to detect, to test, to treat, to isolate, to trace, and then to mobilize our people towards greater containment.
The state government has also upgraded 2 isolation centers at Ergaya and Kwanadawaki to deal with any emergency of the pandemic. To complement government efforts, religious and traditional leaders have also keyed into public enlightenment in worship places on the measures to follow in preventing the spread of the virus as provided by the World Health Organization.
I urge you to desist from social gathering and ensure environmental hygiene at all times.
It's not time to shake hands. It's not time to hug and embrace one another. Now it's time that they stop all those things.
Scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, whenever there is a pandemic, then the command is for people to stay at home and not to be moving about.
With these measures, Kano, which has not recorded any case of the global pandemic, it is hoped that the state will continue to stand out in fighting this scourge.
We proceed with yet another report from Ogun State.
Regular hand washing under running water, use of hand sanitizer, use of face mask and hand glove, keeping social distancing as well as reducing number of people at social or religious gathering at a time to 50 and 20 amongst other are some of the emergency measures put in place by government to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Initially, level of compliance by residents was discouraging until recently when they began to understand the reality of COVID-19 in the country and the need to follow government's directives religiously. Assessing people's response to COVID-19 emergency, the Oshile Okionoegba, Oba Adedapo Tejuosho, who is also a preventive medicine expert, commended the federal and Ogun State governments to reduce the spread of the virus among Nigerians.
God has his own role to play, which is overall. The government also has its own role to play, which they are doing quite well. And I recommend that we cooperate with the government so that all these things will be over.
Religious leaders in the state also expressed their readiness to mobilize their followers to comply with the government directives aimed at containing the spread of the dreaded disease.
And if it happens where you are, don't go out so that we not infect others.
When they say don't go there, we should observe it religiously.
They, however, appealed to federal government to put in place workable palliative measures that will cushion the effect of COVID-19 on the people's finances while the situation lasts.
Assessing the natural response on COVID-19. Back in the studio, we begin right now with some tweets which I'll allow my guests, MMA President and Dr. Agbide, to respond to. I'll take a few and you respond to them, please, because they're quite important. Sambo says COVID-19. Quickly, let me switch to another phone. Quickly. The response basically is, if with the national response in place, how do we test or know who is affected by this, given the last discussion before we went to Kaduna Jos?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's important for us, while we are praising the government for what they have done, to be able to bring out some of the loopholes that we have found out. The first thing is that we have about 139 positive cases in Nigeria, and I want to say that Nigeria should not be basking in the euphoria that that is what we have. What the number of positive cases that we have is dependent on the total number of tests that we have had. I can tell you authoritatively that we have so many people who are on the queue for them to get tested. In fact, some of them have gone round and round to some of this laboratory, and they could not just get themselves tested. So some of them have started using their own personal way of treating, which I don't think is good in this containment and the management of this case. Secondly, I think the thing about Nigerians is for us to have this very big interest in having big gigantic projects. You have seen a lot of government coming out. You have had a lot of them talking of isolation centers, talking of building this, getting this done. And it is important for us to know that isolation centers, the beddings, the ventilators cannot do the work on itself. We need staffs, we need health professionals to be able to make use of those things. And I have studied all over that there is nobody that is looking at the primary executors, the responders, in this issue of COVID-19 containment. In other climes, you have to get people, see that they are highly motivated to get this thing done. But what we talk is we have ventilator, we are opening this, we are opening that. Those things, however good they are not what will cure COVID-19. The first thing we should be looking at, which I'm happy that the public affairs essay to the president said, is that they have had a lot of money. They are getting money for this, for that. But we must be able to make use of that money to treat primarily those who are infected. What we have now, I can tell you authoritatively, we have some doctors, even in Oyo State, who are treating patients who are COVID.
Let me just interrupt you briefly. Okay. Our first caller tonight, Onyebuchi. Onyebuchi is calling you from Owerri. Hello, Onyebuchi. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Onyebuchi. Go ahead. Go ahead. We have a challenge there. Please continue, Doctor.
Okay, my submission is that yes, we commend the government so far they have done, and the federal government and the state government. And I want to say that Nigerians, our attitude to things is always being reactive instead of being proactive. We have these issues going on around the world and whatever, and our government didn't start immediately by closing the borders or placing testing kits at our entry point to stop these things from entering the country in the first place. If we had been proactive enough, at the time the thing was being reported in China, America, Italy, and wherever, we were still playing. We were still thinking that it is not going to get here. That was why our borders were left porous. No testing kits at the airports or entry point, and from there, our officials that traveled and other people started bringing the thing here. So we should be more reasonable sometimes in being proactive than being reactive. That is my view, and the government should also take this thing very serious. Most of these states are not doing what they're supposed to do, because we are deceiving ourselves that this thing has not gotten to this state. Like one of your contributors said here, the main reason is that many people are not being tested. So you can't say we don't have it in these places. People are not being tested. If we are testing 500 people on the average in a day, and we now have 100 and something, you can imagine what it would be if we are testing more people. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Onyebuchi. Doctor, before you conclude, let me take one other tweet. We'll respond, then we'll go to Joss and Kadonko. I guess also waiting there. Now, the one from St. Samuel says, I commend the government for the steps taken so far to tackle COVID-19. Please, they should do more. There are a couple of tweets here, but let me just take the much I can take. This one from Ucheke says, this is a great country where we have seen how our heroes in the past stood and made Nigeria what it is today. With all this going on now, proper health facilities need to be in place and Nigeria should be developed. Thanks to all who have made contributions. God bless you. Pharmacist Umar. The government efforts towards combating COVID-19 is commendable, but the following are also recommended. There is a need for follow-up actions on all already discharged COVID-19 patients. 2. There's also the need for quality assessment of support materials from donor countries. And last on this segment is Nandop Wiyep. Is there a first aid we should be given to a presumed COVID-19 carrier before he or she is taken to the hospital, or would the health workers who are responsible to handle such a case promptly comply to rescue if called upon? I leave that to the two of you.
Well, if I may first try to answer that, the most difficult part of COVID-19 infection is for you to be able to make that diagnosis. Because until you have that test done, you will just be speculating that it is COVID-19 or not. And if you are seeing a COVID-19 patient and you are not well kitted up, you don't done all the necessary PPE, somehow you may be a person who will contract it. And that is the dilemma that many health professionals that are in the forefront or frontline of treating this COVID-19 are facing daily. Many of our hospitals, you have patients who comes with fever. You have patients who comes with cough. We have pregnant women who may be infected with COVID-19. So, should we now get dressed for all cases that we are seeing? Because if we do not protect health workers, I'm talking from that angle, because there is no country that we have had this pandemic or this epidemic of COVID-19 that we have not lost one or two. In fact, many health workers have died. One of the best surgeons, a neurosurgeon in America, just died some 2 days ago from COVID-19. This morning we lost one of our very erudite scholar in UK who contracted COVID-19. We need to do more to protect those who are in the forefront of the treatment. And how do we want to distribute things? This is left for all of us to look at.
Yeah, let me come in here.
Yes.
You see, I just like every other speaker here, I also do commend the efforts or the step being taken by the the federal government. I listened to the president's speech, and one thing that came out clear, he told us that, and which most of us know, is that viral disease COVID-19 inclusive has no specific cure. Scientists are just looking at this, but what we're doing here is like maybe a short-term solution. We're looking at, okay, the preventive measures which we all know, and it has been strongly emphasized, as well as the sanitary, measures. The president also talked about the, economic, package that we're actually pushing, the lives of the people. But other than that, you talk about infection. We know about the biology of this virus very well. The fact that you're washing hands and taking all those preventive and sanitary measures, that actually keeps the virus away from entering into your body. But what do you do if all these measures fail? And of course, it will fail in some cases. And if it gets into the body, how are we getting prepared? How is our body getting prepared? Whether anything, all we do about viral management is about the immune system. We should look at long-term ways how the people can boost their own immune system, so that if the virus comes in, you will be able to withstand it. And measures are being taken. Places like China, I've always talked about this. You go there now, vitamin C has been proven to be one of the most effective antioxidant that is used in management or treatment of this, disease. Nobody is telling us about, measures like that. Great preventive measures, sanitary measures, economic package, but what are you doing to protect the rest of the population that has not yet been exposed?
Okay, when we return after the next set of reports, we shall be going to Jos and then Kaduna. I'll be back in Abuja. Let's take this report from Maiduguri.
Of Maiduguri, the Borno state capital, woke up to more stringent measures put in place by the state government for the next 2 weeks to check the spread of COVID-19 in the insurgency-troubled state. Latest among measures announced by Governor Babagana Umara Zulum in a statewide broadcast include a stay-at-home directive to level 12 and below civil servants, social distancing in commercial transport and public organizations, as well as improved hygiene practices.
All shops in organized business areas are to provide hand washing and temperature monitoring devices in their premises and also ensure social distance.
The State Task Force Committee on COVID-19 had, before the closure of borders, ensured people coming into Borno are monitored for body temperature rise and hand washing before entering.
All point of interest into Maiduguri, people, are be subject to a thorough test.
Currently, Borno State Government has mobilized 1,000 health officers for surveillance and prevention in the grassroots, including mobilization of traditional institutions on COVID-19 prevention measures.
The only permanent solution to this problem, as I see it, number one is prayers, which Borno is known for. Then followed by to obey the rules and regulations, particularly the preventive measures.
At the moment, we do not have any outbreak. Borno State government has set aside a 100-bedded facility for isolation.
On environmental protection, the agency concerned has geared up for fumigation of strategic locations in the state capital and neighboring Jere local government area.
And where I do preventive measures, but we work hand in hand in order to achieve, to succeed, to disallow any outbreak within the community.
For now, there is appreciable compliance by citizens on directives by government with coordinated support from United Nations agencies and international NGOs whose services continue to complement federal and state government programs under a comprehensive preparedness and response plan and resources.
Benin is our next stop.
After an index case of the coronavirus was confirmed in Edo, the state government inaugurated a 35-man COVID-19 response committee chaired by the governor to meet regularly to review outcomes. In order to check the further spread of the disease, the state government announced the closure of schools and markets. It also banned social gatherings of more than 20 persons and ensured strict observance of social distancing policy.
All schools are to remain closed in Edo State until further notice. Citizens are advised to postpone unnecessary travels in and out of the state.
The state government also required commercial vehicles not to carry more than the stipulated passengers in line with the social distancing policy.
For cars, 1 passenger in front and 2 at the back. For buses, 1 passenger in front and 2 in each row.
They carry 3 passengers because of the sickness when they're outside.
I believe it's working fine.
But the price has inflated. But what about if the monies are not there? 3 isolation centers have been put in place in Benin City, Irua, and Auchi, just as a federal government testing center located in Irua with a large number of health certified workers are assigned to contact tracing. The state government is also partnering with Nigerian Medical Association to intensify public health services. Fumigation of streets across the state is also ongoing. While these respondents described the adherence to the measures as non-negotiable, they equally want more enforcement.
All churches are to shut down their doors for the next 2 weeks.
When you are faced with such a precarious situation, what we are supposed to do is you have to stay clear.
The state government, however, indicates that lockdown of the state will be a gradual process.
And our last report before we continue with this conversation is coming from Sokoto.
Stakeholders' engagement in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic in Sokoto State are the traditional and religious leaders. The state government's team, led by the Secretary to the State Government, Saeed Umar, met with the Sultan of Sokoto and his council to brief them on measures taken and areas to seek for support in curtailing the disease.
Schools, government gatherings, particularly government activities that require large gatherings have been prohibited in the next few days, in the next 30 days, and further steps to enlighten the general public have been taken.
We've been able to put in place measures that will curtail or contain and get ready, preparing ourselves for the worst and hoping and praying for the best to happen.
The Sultanate Council called for more proactive measures and assured of ensuring collaborative efforts towards containing the disease in case of any eventuality. The Sultan called for constant update on the situation to keep all stakeholders abreast, which is geared towards informing and educating people on the virus. Religious leaders in the state said adequate sensitization and response has been observed across the state.
We have tried the best we could to ensure that we are able to disseminate, pass across the information that we've gotten from the state government as well as the federal government.
We have to do as much as we could in order to safeguard ourselves. So people should listen to the instructions being given, and especially guidance that is being given from experts, that are health experts, that are advising us so as to prevent ourselves from getting this dangerous disease.
With the calls, it is hoped that everyone will play his role to stay safe, stay home, and stay alive.
Those are the set of reports. Now we go to Jos, where Most Reverend Ignatius Kegama, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, is joining us from. Bishop, my simple question to you now is, where lies selfless sacrifice at this time?
Good should be our concern. And so this is a moment of sober reflection. And this is a tragic period, but we can learn a lot from this. I'm sure God is giving us a message. We are being encouraged to take good care of our personal hygiene, keep ourselves clean and environment. And we are also seeing that we cannot run outside of Nigeria to seek medical help. Therefore, we should look inwards and develop our medical system, upgrade our facilities, instead of dashing to Dubai, to India, to wherever at the slightest headache one has. If we have properly trained medical personnel and medical structures in place, we should be able to defeat any disease coming against us. Spiritually also, we are learning that it is not just when we congregate together in large numbers that God will hear our prayers, that you can actually pray privately, even in your room, in your house. You can communicate with God. Talk to God about your needs, your challenges and worries. Yes, communal prayers, congregational prayers are important. But at such moments when it's just not possible, we should learn to develop a spirituality that is internal, interior. And I think this is what we are lacking. We are used in Nigeria to externalism. We practice our religion in a manner that attracts attention. We build huge places of worship along the roads, and we congregate in huge numbers. That does not determine the quality of our faith. what is important is to apply our religious values earnestly in our daily lives, privately or publicly. So I'm thinking God is telling us to take our spiritual life seriously. And let's not be lost in the anonymity of crowds, that be convinced of what your religion is offering, the values you must uphold in order to protect yourself and also respect the other person. And socially speaking, this is also teaching us how to be our brothers and sisters keepers. That your brother is not well, you should be there. And this should concern us. It's not about Muslims and Christians, north or south. It's not about this tribe or that tribe. And we should give everything we have. And this is a time to use religion positively, not as a weapon of destruction, not as a weapon of confrontation or conflict, not a reason to be arguing. My religion is better than yours. We behave like that Pharisee and the tax collector in the Bible in Luke chapter 18. When the Pharisee, in a flamboyant manner stood and erect and said, look, I'm not like other men. They are evildoers, they are grasping, they are adulterers, they are this and that. And I'm not even like this tax collector. I fast twice in a week, I give tithes of all I get. That is sheer hypocrisy. That is not religion. So I'm talking about internalizing our religious values. And let our values drive whatever we do. Unfortunately, we spend a lot of time arguing and competing unnecessarily. And instead of exploring the positive values of our religion, whether we are Muslims or Christians, we spend time arguing and competing. Very unhealthy. So this is an opportunity to come together as Nigerians, to transcend these narrow differences, these walls, artificial walls we erect among the religions and between tribes and north and south and so on. Please, let us be Nigerians. We are known to be very good in practicing religion, but it is not about externalism. It's about interior life. Let's internalize the values of our religion. Love your neighbor. Be good to your neighbor and help. So this is what will see us through. And when we are ready to surrender even the luxury of going for congregational prayers, and we decide to pray at home for the sake of all Nigerians, then we are sacrificing something, we are being selfless, and God will reward us abundantly for this. And let us all be involved. I was told just today by a bishop coming for the ceremony here in Jos for the installation of the archbishop, how on the road some security agents would stop vehicles and collect money from them. It's so sad. At a point when everybody should be offering, because people are suffering, we are busy collecting. And it is not new. We have resources that are provided, whether to tackle HIV, whether to tackle terrorism, Ebola, and now coronavirus, but they are not being judiciously used. It is annoying that we are blessed. We have the resources, and we lack the will and the selflessness to apply these resources in order to help Nigerians. Very soon you will hear people are getting rich from the donations you talked about than what the federal government provides. There is enough to look after the people, but it goes into private pockets. And before you know it, these resources have evaporated and people are dying and nobody cares. So I hope that this is the time for Nigerians to say no to such corrupt behavior. Let us give everything we have. The little, the big you have, donate it, give it. Be your brother and sisters keepers, and I tell you we can defeat coronavirus.
Bishop, before I go to Kaduna, what attitude should Christians exhibit during the Holy Week at this time?
Attitude of Christians. Yes, this is a sober period, a period of prayer, a period that we sacrifice. We go into fasting so that whatever we spare, we can use it to support those who are socially deprived. those who are poor and hungry, and they are in their millions. This is a moment of prayer, intensive prayer. I'm not talking of hypocritical prayer. I'm not talking of babbling. I'm talking of a serious communication with God, that we can actually attract His mercy and sympathy. And this is no time to be myopic. Unfortunately, our religious practice hinges on miracles and prosperity, or just being everywhere visible. What I say call externalism. People emphasize miracles. God will do it, even when you haven't done your own part. And then you expect that God will solve every problem because you congregate and clap and do all that. And then you are talking of prosperity. And religion is about sacrifice. So God wants us to be loyal. God wants us to be patriotic citizens, obedient to the laws of the land, and to be concerned about one another. This will help us to eliminate the unnecessary and unhealthy differences we create between the North and the South, the Muslims and the Christians. This is the cause of our drawback. Instead of progressing, we are always retrogressing. Other nations are developing technically, scientifically, and everywhere, technologically. We are held back by narrow, myopic religious views and actions.
Okay, thank you so much, Bishop.
Narrow interests, and then, of course, politics.
Thank you, Bishop. Let's proceed to Kaduna, where Dr. Khalid is also joining us from. Doctor, besides prayer and oneness in Nigeria towards this, what would you say is your best advice to convince someone who would prefer to continue to breach the stay-at-home order because of his or her deliberate?
I think now, I think seeing in others is enough a lesson for introspection, pondering, and really thinking. One, I think it is time that we all rise to the occasion and become one in order to head on face this challenge, because I am certain that when we come together as Nigerians from different backgrounds in order to do that which we are being asked to do in order to contain this serious national and global or international tragedy, then when we come together, we'll be able to do that. That is one. Two, for those who live hand to mouth, it's a choice between living and dying. And that this is where the important government intervention of practical palliatives that will practically really reach the hand of the indigent, the common man, this is where it comes really very prominent. Quite unfortunately, if these things are given to people to supervise for the distribution, they will be cornered and they will be meandered into certain places where even those who are supposed to enjoy will not enjoy. Elsewhere in the world, certain countries are even crediting the accounts of their citizenry, preparing food dropped at the doorstep of houses for the occupants of those houses to come and pick them. I tell you, without these palliatives, then we will suffer another virus. There may unfortunately be another hunger virus, because about, I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say more than 80% of Nigerians are people who don't have what to eat until they go out. And I think the government should really have to sit down and do a very critical thinking on how to do this palliative. The issue of food security comes to fore. Elsewhere in the world, I am not sure of the level of food security being done by the government of this country, where outlets are supposed to be provided by the government for all the essential needs of the common man will now be sold at a cheaper and subsidized rates. These are indeed very, very important. And I think this is the time the government slogan will be tested of fighting corruption. For now, the business community has done its own bit, and we thank them and we appreciate them. We even also appreciate the giant stride taken by the government. And we will stay tuned and continue to see how these things are utilized. And I think this is the time, if we scientifically do the analysis on what we want and where we want them to be, and what do we want in order to make these things become functional and become useful, then we can do it. And wherever we have a fault line, we'll be able to detect, and such a person will be punished. Therefore, I think the major catastrophe I fear is when hunger push people whose movements are being restrained, who are pushed by hunger. You know, a hungry man, they say, is an angry man. And it is really a physiological and psychological need that must be met. If something is not done, then I fear something negative may come. And this is advice to the government, at both federal and state levels, that we do. It is not enough just to lock down states or to curtail the movements without having palliatives or cushioning gestures that would see to the proper compliance in order to contain this pandemic. Our country is at crossroad. We are on trial in terms of this pandemic. It is enough a lesson that other countries who are scientifically and medically and economically advanced are overwhelmed. And here we are just looking. The experts told us, I think the threatened species on the first list are the medical practitioners who don't even have the required gadgets to be able to face those infected with the coronavirus. But if we work together, we come together, I think it is time. Please let us not politicize these issues. Please let us not trivialize these issues. It's about humanity. It's about saving life. In the glorious Quran, Allah the Almighty says, whoever saves a life is as if he has saved the whole world. And whoever jeopardizes the life of an individual is as if he has caused jeopardy unto the life of all the humankind in the world. It is really very, very important that we look at these things critically and scientifically, socially, religiously. No politicization. No politicization. Let us look at these issues head on. Elsewhere,
Thank you. At this point, Dr. Kali, we'll come back to you. I'm back in Abuja. Before we went to Jos and Kaduna, we talked about the issue of appropriate gadgets, training for the health personnel. You talk about that. Then I go to Dr. Witie. We talk about information flow, appropriateness, inappropriateness. Health personnel and gadgets at this time.
Well, as it is, I want to appreciate all the donor agencies or the people, Nigerian philanthropists who have donated. And I think it's good for the government to be open in the process of disbursement to the different states. I must tell you, from the situation on ground today, we have 3 extra in Osun State. So there is no state that should be underestimated for not having or not possibly having any case of COVID-19. And if we do not take heed ab initio from beginning, it is very likely that many health professionals, doctors, nurses, lab technicians, the ambulance people, and all others who are the first responders, if they do not take the appropriate steps to guide against them being infected, many of them may fall victim. So it is important for us to know that the issue confronting us is not an issue we should take with levity. We should be able to have an opportunity, a meeting with the stakeholders. Who are those people who are seeing them, letting us to have a way in which you can see their frustration, the difficulties, and areas that you need to improve upon. But what we have seen so far, we have seen good people who have donated money. We have seen a lot of equipment being put in place. We have not seen the number of personnel that will use it. We have not seen the personnel complement that will test run that. And importantly, we are looking at edifices, big projects. We are not looking at the operationalization. For example, I have said it, we have a doctor presently in Oyo State who is a volunteer who has been treating COVID-19 patients. He's having fever, he's having signs of COVID-19, and in the last 72 hours, he's still waiting to get tested. How do you want to relate that? Meanwhile, we have many of our politicians who had contact, and all of them come out and say, look, I am COVID-19 positive or negative, as if it is something that is the in thing. Those who are sick are not getting it. Okay? And if you can do that for the first responders, will that one make other people willing to come and treat this patient? And what do we need now? The isolation ward, you are having 500 units, 500 bed isolation ward, you are having 200, 2,000, 3,000. If you don't have patients getting to that level, you do not use those isolation wards. And mind you, most of those big edifices, this isolation ward, this one, are makeshift. They cannot add into the health system of this country, because after when you build an isolation ward in the national stadium or wherever you have used, after containing the disease, you have to pack everything, and it cannot help.
But we talked about sustainability at the beginning. How do we handle that?
And this is the problem we are having. The problem we are having is that many of those structures that are being put in place are new structures. They are not looking at old structures that you can improve upon, so that when COVID-19 epidemics leave this country, we can continue to use that. We have so many people, so many specialists that you need to brush up for them to come into it. Nobody is talking about that. And it is important for us to also know that while we are locking down everywhere, it is these doctors, these nurses, and these other health workers that are going on the field to make sure that we clear those who are infected. Let me tell you a classical example of what happened in Lagos State this morning. The CP, Mr. Odumozu, came out and said that it is not good enough for a doctor to show, or a health officer, a health professional, to show the ID card. You must also show that you are on duty. So if there is an emergency and you need volunteer, I will have to be carrying a paper apart from showing who I am. It means the man is totally disjointed about the seriousness of the issues that we are talking about.
That leads me to information flow, appropriateness and inappropriateness. Doctor.
Well, Omini, first of all, I think we are really heading in the right direction. Looking at, the organizational level of which things are set up, starting with the Presidential Task Force, which is headed by boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the government, a very dynamic and serious-minded person. So that put us in the case of, organization. And then now we have the formation of the technical committee that is headed by the Vice President. What I would like to see or suggest is that the state government must also operate on parallel lines, and you can see that most of the states have actually started doing that, so that there is a need for harmonization or easy flow of information and standardization. Just like the president said, we have to do everything in conformity with the WHO guidelines, so that what is being done in one state as appropriate step of remediation against COVID-19 is not different from state B or state C. That is really very important. And another thing which I must commend, the efforts of media houses like NTA. You people are on a very high, heartbeat in terms of information flow, because from time to time we're actually being updated of the situation report. What is going on? How many people are coming there? Have been affected. How many people have died, or how many people have been cured and then free? So there must be that organized way of disseminating and regularizing information up to the point of state level, then even local government level, and then to county levels. It should be set up in this paradigm.
Well, I must say that given all the time, we may not exhaust this discussion, but the conversation continues maybe after now to other platforms of the NTA. At this point, I'll quickly ask Doctor, your last words, looking at the sacrifice by professionals, not just your constituency. You have talked about the media here. We have other professionals who are functioning at this time. What last word do you have for the vice and of the program?
Well, my last word is that Nigerians should appreciate every person who is involved in this care of COVID-19. You are here. Every professional group, media, the drivers, the ambulance people, the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, a large number of people. We should appreciate them. And in appreciating them, first, Nigerians must follow the necessary regulations, because that's how you can make things easy for them. Secondly, we must follow the guidelines taken. And lastly, we want the government to do the needful. Building big edifices does not translate to good health. There are some tiny things. Testing, as it is the major step, rate limiting step that they must improve upon and get people treated appropriately.
Now, beginning from Kaduna, I must thank Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid Abubakar is the Secretary General, Jamaatul Nasrul Islam. He joined us from our Kaduna Network Center. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight.
I'm hopeful as a religious person that God is on top of the situation, and this will be a history in the near future. And spiritually, that our misdoings, our misbehaviors, our recalcitrant attitudes may be some of the reasons why these things escalate. But I'm quite sure God being merciful, and all that is needed is for us to cry in humility, in solitude, sincere obedience to Him without any show of pomposity, but that of humility, and we raise our hands and we beg Him and we ask Him. He is oft forgiving, most merciful, all hearing. He will solve our problems together. I'm quite sure and I'm quite certain, I'm optimistic, that in few weeks to come, by God's grace, inshallah, this problem will become up.
Thank you, Doctor. And Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, it was nice having you on the program. I will believe you will always be on you subsequently. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
May Nigeria stay well and safe.
Thank you. And in Abuja, Dr. Tor Agbide, Executive Director, In-Country Medicare and Public Health, expert on immune boosters. It was nice having you on the program.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I would like to use this opportunity to make an appeal to all Nigerians that we have to be patient with the lockdown. That is one of the key steps that we can take in containing this disease. Thank you.
Dr. Francis Faduliye, President, Nigerian Medical Association. Thank you so much.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
To all our callers, those who made it and those who couldn't make it, and those who sent into it, thank you so much. On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.